Rob here again from Plymouth Music Zone. Hope you're well, hope everything's going as good as can be. We're continuing to look at the different samba parts that I want you to record and send in. Thanks to those who've done that already, much appreciated. And I think we're actually going to be able to make something which is brilliant. Today it's the turn of the Surdo part. Now Surdo, if you haven't heard of one before, is a very large drum typically. It will have a membrane at the top, like 40 inches across is pretty standard, and they can quite often be a metre or so deep. Sorry for mixing up the units there, but never mind. Yes, quite deep, and they give a visceral feeling. When you hit a Samba Surdo with the beta, it really goes through you, really bassy sound. The Surdos have different voices, so in a basic sense there'll be 3 voices in a sort of carnival samba, and the first 2 voices will have an alternating sound, so they'll be alternating between 2 notes. You'll be going dun 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 dun, and then there's a third part that's more ornate, so they'll be going along going like dun 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 dun, and when you put the 3 together they make a little chorus. So it's not only a polyrhythm with the different patterns happening at the same time, but it's also polyphony. There's a kind of, because there's an interval between the first 2 and then the third one joins, there's like a chord that happens, so it's very cool. I very much appreciate the way that it does that. We're going to look at the primero voice today, which is the first voice, and seeing as the second voice is the same as the first but just in a different place, when we go to arrange it we can decide how to use your submission. But yeah, so we're just going to look at primero, and depending on what comes in, it may be used for the other voice called secundo, but we'll see. I have a drum that's not as big as a Surdo. This is a Crobotto from Ghana, but it'll do. I don't know what you might have. I wonder if 2-litre bottles sometimes make a nice sound. I don't know if you'll be able to hear this. Well, I'm sure you can come up with something imaginative. So I've got my Crobotto, which I'm using as a Surdo. Now there are, as we said, we've been talking about samba. There's loads of different types of samba, and there's actually loads of different types of Surdo. Sometimes they do play them sort of under the arm, but the big ones, they're worn with this shoulder strap as people are processing along. But yeah, so just whatever's comfortable, whatever you're using for your Surdo. Yeah. So we need to know 2 sounds to play the Surdo part. We need to know a tone, which sort of confusing things here because we can use different hand drumming tones if we wanted to, but that's not really the point. The point is we want the drum to ring out in a bassy way. So it might be that. Just a note. You want a note, a tone, and then the second sound is a muted sound. So, and part of the reason you do that is to stop the drum ringing out. As these different voices are having a conversation, when you strike a purpose-designed Surdo, they actually ring on for a very long time. Then, I guess thinking about it, they're not that dissimilar to a orchestral timpani. So imagine hitting a timp drum, it will just ring for quite a long time. Same with the Surdo, it will ring. So when you've got that conversation happening, if both drums were just ringing out, there would be no clarity. So to play is strike the drum and then they mute at the appropriate time, so I'll try and demonstrate that. It adds musicality. So yeah, those are our two sounds. We want a tone and a mute. So mute, preferably be quiet. If your substitute surdo doesn't actually ring out, if it just makes a very short notice, then maybe you don't have to worry about the mute, but I'll leave that up to you. And quite simply, when we've got our pulse, we're working at 80 beats per minute. The tone and mute happen the same time as those metronome clicks at 80 beats per minute. So it's just a one-to-one match. And Primero, the part that I'm sort of describing now starts, even though if we use it for if we use it for a secundo, we might do that, but the Primero in this arrangement, for a certainty, it goes mute first, so if you're counting in, you go 1, 2, mute, open, mute, open, mute, open. Which, Primero is like the lower toned drum, so I haven't found it, particularly when I was learning, I didn't find that necessarily intuitive, because we're so accustomed to having, a lot of music you'll hear around in our country or in the West more generally heavily accented on kind of bass snare, so that downbeat, that strong beat is bassy, whereas playing this part, you're coming in with a mute, and then the deepest sound is played on the second beat, which is maybe it's weird, maybe it's not, maybe it's just me. But yeah, so I hope you can find a substitute surdo and follow the instructions on submitting video or audio, depending on what you're okay with other people seeing when we create something out of this. But yeah, that's all there is to it. Primero is just mute, open, mute, open, mute, open. And as before, please give me a good stretch of time. Part of that will just help you settle into your groove of letting the parts settle down, and the other part is just making the editing easier if we've got a bit more time to play with. So yeah, sort of roughly a minute would be good. Right, well that's it. Haven't decided what we're looking at next week, but it'll be something fun, I'm sure, and I hope you all have a lovely time. See you next week.